안녕하세요. 운동을 해야겠죠. 오늘은 3월 9일인가? 8일인가? 월요일입니다. 주말 동안에 팔굽혀펴기랑 턱걸이를 해서 상체 운동 위주로 했죠. 자, 오늘부터는 이제 다시 월화 스쿼트랑 스트레칭 위주로 하겠습니다. 지금 수영도 안 가고 영어학원도 안 가고 있어서 사실상 시간이 되게 많이 남아요. 퇴근하고 나서. 근데도 움직이기 싫습니다. 예, 출근을 한다는 것 자체가 이미 겁나 피곤해요. 그리고 오늘 너무 힘들었습니다. 너무 바빴어요. 정신이 없었어요. 짜증났습니다. 울고 싶었어요. 하지만 전 울지 않죠. 오늘도 운동을 해서 유튜브에 기록을 남기고 나중에 이게 쌓여서 나중에 저의 흑역사가 되겠죠. 제가 요즘에 주식에 눈을 떴어요. 원래 눈을 떴다기보다 지금 코로나 때문에 세계 경제가 말이 아니죠. 앞으로 좀 더 충격파가 더 세질 거고요. 누가 봐도 폭락이 올 거라는 거를 쉽게 예상할 수 있습니다. 또 금요일 날에는 국제 유가 러시아 감산하기로 했는데 러시아가 난 싫다 배째라 이씨 이래가지고 사우디가 그래 씨 니 형은 죽어봐라 이러면서 유가를 미친듯이 뽑아내겠다고 선언을 했죠. 그러므로 일단은 미국의 셰일 유전이 타격을 받을 것이고요. 그다음에 코로나가 퍼짐으로써 미국의 경제가 안 좋아질 겁니다. 미국은 주로 소비하는 경제죠. 소비의 경제. 근데 만약에 코로나의 특징이 뭡니까? 격리예요, 격리. 사람들의 외부 활동이 없어집니다. 특히 막 유럽이나 미국 같은 경우는 마스크도 잘 안 써요. 더 심해지겠죠. 그래서 현재 갖고 있던 삼성전자 주식을 다 털었습니다. 대략 14.8% 정도 이득을 봤고요. 저는 이거를 저점에 매수를 해서 폭락이 올 거니까 어느 순간에 매수를 해서 다시 이 원상복구 될 때 팔 겁니다. 그 수익을 대략 30%까지 보고 있는데 어떻게 될지 모르겠네요. 주식은 아무도 알 수 없으니까요. 일단은 뭐 지금 오늘만 봐도 일단 떨어졌죠. 현재까지 예상은 적중하고 있습니다. 개소리 그만하고 운동할게요. 일단 CNN 여러분 영어 공부하셔야 됩니다.
Of the fact how they left their country. What would it look like if you can bring them back and have them be co-investor or investor in that country? I can tell you it will absolutely transform the continent. My name is Almaz Negash. I am the founder and executive director of the African Diaspora Network.
Hailing from the East African nation of Eritrea, Almaz Negash identifies with those who have fought hard to change their circumstances.
I grew up during the war between Eritrea and Ethiopia in a time when you have to hide under the table, under the bed. So fear was part of my growing up. So, in many African countries, women are unable to own land. My mother, on the other hand, she was an entrepreneur, very unusual. She defied all the cultural norms. I was very competitive and really good in school, and education for me was just a way out. I went to high school, to all boys high school of all places. The school accepted only 11 women out of the 120 students. It just tells you how much we were trying to progress and change that trajectory for women. And the assumption is that women are not good for math and science and all that. But I had a feeling that I didn't want to live the life that probably my sisters had to live, which is get married at the age of 18. All of these things I never believed in. And I said, I am not going to stay here and work. I really want to go and pursue higher education. So the family just put all their resources together and get me out of the country.
It was in Northern California where Negash would eventually settle, forging relationships and helping to empower a community that she left behind.
I think the diaspora gives 3 times more to the continent than the continent gets from aid, or I believe even direct foreign investment. But the change that I'm looking for is we're not just going to be transactional in the amount of money we send to the continent, to our family, but what else can we do to scale the remittances so that we actually are investing in a community? What would it look like if I can really create a small venture for them, a small store or an enterprise for them so that they can have a sustainable income? Because at the core for me, I'm worried that if we continue to give people money, I feel that we're creating dependent society. The selected individual will have made exceptions.
The African Diaspora Network runs an annual symposium in Silicon Valley, bringing together entrepreneurs, philanthropists, investors and innovators to be agents of change for Africa.
The people that we bring here, they really are selected. In a way, they represent the challenge and the opportunity that Africa faces. People come for connection, for knowledge exchange, ideas exchange and all that, but at the end of the day, they also get potential investors they've secured. We know them. We've seen also ventures that really sprang out of these conversations. We also know partnerships and mentorships that have been created as a result of the network and the symposium.
Africa's challenges may be daunting, but for this trailblazer, it can only be tackled with a collaborative approach.
All my life, I've looked at Africa as a one continent that is the mother of humanity. I think it's very global, and I also see the potential for the continent is not from where we come from. It's not going to be siloed. I think it's going to be intra-Africa migration, intra-Africa trade, intra-diaspora collaboration. All of these things are really important for the continent to move forward, and I see my role in it.
Well, being a homeowner is one of the best ways to help someone feel empowered, but access to affordable, sustainable housing remains a barrier, especially for women across Africa. Well, a teacher by trade, our next innovator is building a model for the future in Uganda, one home at a time.
As a young girl growing up in Uganda, Anne Rayoa dreamt of one day becoming a civil engineer. But after her father died, her mother struggled to support a family of 8 on a single income. Rayoa qualified to take university engineering courses, but she couldn't afford to go.
Since my mother was spending more than 50% on housing, staying with less to spend on our education facilities, limiting our access to quality health, and in terms of feeding, we had to have less meals for some days, which was also an attribute due to spending more of her earnings on housing.
As an adult, Rayoa has turned the challenges of her childhood into an opportunity. She co-founded Smart Havens Africa, a business social enterprise that provides an affordable, sustainable, eco-friendly pathway to home ownership for women and low-income households in Africa. Rayoa says she doesn't want to see other women go through the difficulties her mother experienced. She wants to help families get out of the slums and to empower women to realize their dreams.
Children are growing up in insecure settlements, resulting to rape cases, resulting to violence, drug addiction, poor sanitation, which has also led to death due to poor quality health.
Her program provides a rent-to-own housing plan that enables women to own their own home within 3 to 5 years. Her team is currently building 61 homes and hopes to have 80 built by the end of the year. The vision is to build 1,000 homes each year. What's unique about this venture is that the construction workers use a technology that allows them to press interlocking bricks on site. This process gives them the chance to use readily available materials, cutting construction costs in half. It also falls in line with United Nations climate change goals for sustainable development. Rayora is passionate about also involving young women in civil engineering, a field which is traditionally dominated by men. She provides them with skills and training and offers the best performers with employment opportunities. Rayora hopes that she can expand the business beyond Uganda. Her dream, to eventually eradicate poverty across the continent.
Little did I know that I would even do more than just being a civil engineer by making more women achieve their housing desires, achieving their dreams of home ownership, even gives me more pride at the moment. And I feel it was God's plan to be in this field.
She came from humble beginnings, but Rayora's experience growing up shaped who she became as a person. A woman determined to eliminate poverty in Africa.
From affordable homes to clean water access, we are headed to Kenya, where one woman is using the very air that we breathe to make water that is safe to drink. That's next.
Transforming business, transforming communities, Dangote transformational projects, transforming Africa.
요즘에 이 스트레칭을 진짜 안 한 것 같아. 너무 오랜만에 한 것 같은데. 와, 진짜 수영 진짜 오랜만에 하면은 리스트 같아. 과연 수영장이 언제 다시 오픈할까요? 이 코로나 4월달까지 4월에는 하려나?
Guanajuato, greatness of Mexico, state government.
I feel free knowing we live in a democratic society, but we also have to protect it.
Freedom right now means I have to speak up.
If you are a slave, you feel you are not human.
Well, welcome back as we celebrate International Women's Day. We are highlighting female innovators across the African continent. Universal access to clean drinking water is one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Well, in Nairobi in Kenya, one woman is hoping to help by using a resource we have all around us. Game and a much needed drink. But no piped water runs to this children's home in Kenya. This drink was sourced directly from the air around it. This is magic water.
MAJI means water in Swahili. That is maji, and then K stands for kuvuna, which is harvesting in Swahili. And we specialize in air to water technology, and especially in arid or semi-arid regions, so regions that are water stressed.
Beth Koigi co-founded Magic Water to exploit what she sees as an overlooked resource.
We still have a lot of untapped resources, and air is one as a water source. There is actually 6 times more water in the atmosphere than there is in all rivers around the world. So that is a lot of untapped fresh drinking water.
Magic water systems range in size,
여러분,
but
이제
they
손이
all
답니다.
build off the same concept that
오.
causes water to drip from a glass on a hot day.
The system uses the condensation technology. So this
와,
is
조금만 더 하면 이제 잡을 수도 있을 것 같아요.
the machine using the fans, and these fans pull in cold, wet air, which is then passed through a condenser coil, and then we have a holding tray where the condensed water fall on.
Drip by drip, the condensation falls, pure water draining down a tube and into a collection tank. Koigi says Magic Water's largest systems can harvest up to 100,000 litres of pure drinking water a day.
This machine is behind me is basically 500 liters per day, but if the humidity is higher, we can get 560 liters per day. This machine right now, what we are doing, we are testing it. Basically just looking at the production capacity in regards to the humidity and the temperature, and we are preparing this machine because we will be taking it to Turkana, where we have partnered with an NGO, and they'll be using it in a pediatric clinic.
Magic Water can connect to any power source, solar, the grid, or a generator. It's geared to areas that are off the beaten track. At first, this children's home had to source its water from a nearby river.
And we have got so many challenges from that water. Even after cooking with the water had some chemicals. The water was not clean, and we could just use it the way it was, and the effect was children got sick. Now we have this water which is safe, and we are very happy.
Around 40% of Kenyans do not have regular access to clean water, but the technology may have far-reaching impacts in the years to come.
By 2025, 1.8 billion people will be living in water-stressed regions. So this is a very wide and group-wide spread issue. So it has the capability of being applied in many places.
Well, water impacts so much of our lives, from what we drink, of course, to the food that we eat. And for farmers, their livelihoods and ours are dependent on access to water, even during a drought. Well, our next innovator grew up on a rural farm in Kenya and used that knowledge to build an app that bridges new technology with traditional practices. Farming remains a pillar of most economies in Africa. The majority of production comes from small farms that heavily rely on rain. So if it doesn't rain, the farmers have a problem. They need to prepare and minimize the negative effects. Muthoni Masinde is a computer scientist in South Africa who created a website and mobile app that warns farmers about looming drought conditions.
I grew up in the village, and I noticed that the farmers in the village do not have any form of science to tell when to plant or even where to plant and when. So they use indicators that they watch or they sense in the environment. They watch insects, they watch behavior of animals, and then they make a decision. I think it's rain 2 weeks time, so they prepare their land.
The tool combines ancient African knowledge with scientific data, for example from weather stations, to come up with predictions. Masinde has partnered with the South African Weather Services and the universities of Free State and KwaZulu-Natal.
Scientific knowledge without the combination of indigenous knowledge lacks context. It is of utmost importance to factor it in. The reason why it has been eroded is mostly because of the perception that it is inferior to scientific knowledge.
Today, the project is recruiting a group of community liaison officers to collect knowledge from the local farmers.
So meaning every data that you submit into the database, we are going to come back to the farm and help based on the information that you've given.
Traditionally, farmers would look at the behavior of animals and plants to predict the weather.
Next to me is a tree by the name Acacia totiris, we believe that whenever it flowers, the rains are very near, 1 to 2 weeks to the onset. So immediately the tree flowers, the farmers start preparing their land, expecting the rains anytime.
The community liaison officers go and collect this knowledge, and it gets fed into the app and website which the farmers have access to.
It's gonna warn us. Everything is perfect. It's gonna help us.
Masinde says the app has been a great success.
와,
It's
이거
currently being used in
지금 몇
3
했죠?
African countries.
20분.
10,000 farmers,
아우.
the majority of which are in Kenya, where Masinde is from, but also in Mozambique and in South Africa.
The first one is the information they're giving to our local scale farmers.
The mother of 4 has been invited to speak internationally, and she's won numerous awards for her work. Her project has received funding from both the South African and American governments.
They managed to avoid what many researchers go through. We call it innovation valley of death. Come up with innovation, dive into the valley, and never come out. But I got out of that, and I can stand on the rooftop and say, I did it.
Well, from ambitious apps to mainstream music, our innovators have it all covered, with plenty of inspiration to be found in the UK. That's next.
Transforming business. Transforming communities. Dangote transformational projects. Transforming Africa.
40 years ago, Vietnam looked nothing like this. Today, its cities are rising, and this Southeast Asian nation now has one of the most dynamic economies in the region.
There's a lot of opportunity for the country to grow.
See how Vietnam is still growing, and meet entrepreneurs and innovators, helping to drive that growth.
Young generation, they have some new idea in mind.
Growing Vietnam, Saturday on
제가
CNN.
베트남 펀드도 갖고 있어요. 지금 마이너스인데 요거 올해 넘어가서 다음 해부터 아마 수익이 나지 않을까 생각을 합니다. 조심스럽게. 지금 펀드를 다 털까? 펀드에 한 1,000만 원 있거든요 지금. 둘 다 마이너스예요 지금. 근데 어차피 이 펀드 또한 지금 이 상황이 끝나고 나면은 수익을 낼 텐데 모르겠습니다. 어느 게 좀 더 이득이 있지는. 근데 펀드를 팔고 주식으로 본격적인 투자를 하는 게 좀 더 이득이 될 수도 있겠지만.
When to see a doctor. CNN's new podcast has answers. Join Dr. Sanjay Gupta for
투자의 원칙은 분산 투자죠. 저의 원칙은 하나에 올인하기에는.
Welcome back. Our last guest has made a dramatic impact in the world of music. An inspirational figure, she has succeeded in challenging the status quo and in the process forced people to take a fresh look at popular culture. So you grew up in London, in a place called Kilburn, in what you describe as a crowded council flat.
이제 마지막 스쿼트를 할 건데.
I know it's hard to believe. I'm the
이거 들고 하겠습니다 마지막으로.
children. My mother came from Ireland. My father came from Ghana. And they both came to this country in the UK around about the age of 18. And, you know, it was hard to believe it now, but it was at a time when there was notices on which that said no Irish, no blacks, no dogs. And our only redeeming factor was that we couldn't afford a dog, but I always wanted one.
You came up with the idea that ultimately became
Lobo, when you were really quite young, just take me back to that period. How difficult was it, for example, to get support for the idea?
Yeah, it was very challenging trying to get support for a platform that was going to celebrate and champion Black music and culture. I remember, becoming quite frustrated with the injustices I saw around me because, Black music and Black artists were making waves that were reverberating around the world, but weren't enough to be kind of celebrated in their own right. And I just wanted to do something about it. I guess I was told that I was wasting my time, and I thought, it's now or never, and I refuse to fail.
For those viewers who aren't familiar with London in the late 80s, early 90s, just describe what the environment was like in this city.
Yes, so I guess in the mid-90s, we'd had 17 years of a Conservative government. 1996 was the year I started the Mobile organisation, and Tony Blair was seen as the big hope at the time. When we decided to kind of take the plunge, the climate at the time was all about Britpop. The Spice Girls was, mainstream and a huge amount of coverage around them. At the time, Nelson Mandela, who was a huge figure at the time, had been released from prison after 27 years of captivity, and the place he chose to visit was Brixton, because that was an area identified with inequality.
This is an area in South London
That's
which
right.
had a big Black community.
Exactly, big Black community at the time. And there was this, The Specials, a multiracial group that had this track called Free Nelson Mandela, and it became an anthem, an anti-apartheid track. And we realised that how you can galvanise society and bring people together and challenge what is not right that is out there. So amongst all this climate in terms of, Britpop and, the musical landscape was changing, and I realised there was a gap in the marketplace that I wanted to readdress.
여기까지만 하겠습니다. 너무 힘들어. 25분.
The organisation has grown so much since then.
Yeah, we've become a media